Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Today on the program, strong words from President Rodrigo Duterte.
I will not accept it. Hindi na bali maghirap tayo. Mabubuhay na naman tayo. And we cannot be forever depending on aid. It's very stupid of some public officials.
Rejecting new grants coming from the European Union.
If EU starts giving us with no strings attached without those agreements, diba, everyone could use the help. But kung apektado sovereignty natin tapos ganyan yung agreement, I don't blame the President in drawing the line.
What lies ahead for Philippine-EU relations?
The reception and the discussions were so cordial, pleasant, and instead of moralizing and lecturing us, no, they were even helpful and asking us in what way they can help.
Special envoy to the European Union, former Senate President Edgardo Angara, joins us live. And later, a fast food chicken company only followed 11 people on Twitter. The reason? Find out on today's In Focus.
This program is presented by Bank of Commerce, an affiliate of San Miguel Corporation.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Pinky Webb. In several occasions, President Rodrigo Duterte lashed out at the European Union. Mr. Duterte says the country will no longer accept additional help from the regional bloc. He reiterates that receiving aid from the EU is an insult to the country's sovereignty. Speaking to reporters last week, Foreign Affairs Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano clarifies that the Philippines is not cutting ties with the EU and trade relations will continue. And he says the non-acceptance of new grants only intends to prevent any foreign intervention in the government's policies. Let's go straight to the source of the story, Special Envoy to the European Union, former Senate President Edgardo Ed Angara. Sir, so good to see you again. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mingy. Long time no see.
Long time no see. You're looking well, sir.
Thanks.
And it's a new job for you.
Entirely new job.
You know what? The first question that comes to mind really, sir, is mahirap ba maging special envoy to the European Union?
It's very hard to work in government at any time, whatever position. That's why I look forward to my retiring from the Senate in 2013 or 2011, because then I can follow my own agenda, my own calendar. I'm not ruled by official schedule, meetings, etc. But it's a pleasure to work for the President because you may have to be on your feet all the time because there are unexpected moments and occasions when he says things entirely unexpected.
Surprising.
Surprising. But the good thing about the President is that if he realizes that what he said is wrong or based on wrong assumptions, then he's quick to correct it. And I think his genuine concern and compassion for people, for our people, is really authentic. No faking. It's not faking.
Let's go to that, sir. I mean, it was the President who said very recently, and it's not the first time, that we're not going to receive grants from the EU because apparently he found out that he thought it was the EU that had said maybe we should be taken out, suggested that we should be taken out of the United Nations Human Rights Commission, and that maybe trade relations between the Philippines
to be cut off.
Yeah, should be cut off. And then it was just to give the premise, Secretary Abella then eventually, because people were shocked, and then Secretary Abella was saying, well, it's not really, I think addressed to the European Union. However, it was the Progressive Alliance who apparently, let's just put it this way, there was a miscommunication. Wasn't there?
Yes, there was I think, inappropriate transmission of message to him. The truth is, the so-called EU delegation who came here, composed of 7 members, is not an official EU delegation. In fact, only one of them is a member of the EU Parliament, and 3 of them are foreigners, American, Australian, etc. So they're mainly human rights activists, which, as you see, the President doesn't even stop or go after. So it's miscommunication, misinterpretation, misinformation. But the thing is, these guys or whoever sponsored them misrepresented their status to the public, leading to one of our
How
leading.
can you say that?
ministers.
But how can you say that they misrepresented?
Because the
when-
headlines said EU delegation says cut off aid, cut off trade.
No, but what I'm trying to say, Senator, is that when you look at the banner, during that press conference they had, there was never mention of EU. There was mention that they were the Progressive Alliance. In fact, parang they were even saying that they wanted to make it clear that they never represented themselves as EU.
Then our media, which is traditional, misrepresented them to us, because that's the banner. If you look back, you will see the banner, EU delegation, very clearly. And therefore...
It should have been maybe European
human rights.
members.
No, they're not even European.
There is one.
There's only one.
Yeah, the
but
Parliament.
Out of 7,
Yeah.
my God.
So
You
let's make
cannot
that clear.
speak.
There were 7. One is a member of Parliament, and the others
And
were...
the rest are non-members.
Okay, activists
And
even.
in fact, 3 of them are not even from Europe. So I think it's... And that's, I think, the president responded to. And when he was told, no, because the EU itself, the EU delegation in Manila itself, disowned them.
Right. They came out with a statement.
Yes. And when it was brought to the attention of the president, he immediately corrected it. Now, the matter of aid is something else, as you said.
Let's
even
talk
earlier.
about that, sir.
Even earlier, he hesitated accepting any aid. But historically, if you look back, the EU has been extending to us aid and development assistance. I remember even when I was in the University of the Philippines, the EU chose 3 of the poorest provinces in the Philippines to introduce the so-called integrated area development. And one of the 3 provinces chosen was Aurora.
Really?
So from a monocrop, coconut lang, for 15 years, they develop us into a multiple crop
Industry.
Province.
Yeah.
Hindi na lang coconut. We grow lanzones, we grow rambutan, we grow pomelo. Everything.
And that was through the help of the EU.
To the help of it. That also happened to Palawan and to Antique. So that's in the 70s. I remember that's in the 70s.
UP ka pa nun, sir, sabi mo.
Oo, nasa UP pa ako nun. And so it's a historical record, track record. And that's why I don't think the president meant to say no to all forms of aid. I think he's very clear, and I think Secretary Alan made it clearer that's only aid with strings attached that makes us look like mendicants. But
do you agree with that, sir? That if there are questions on possible human rights violations committed by the government on the president's war on drugs, that the EU should not say anything about it?
No, that's a separate issue, Kwana. Aid and trade are 2 separate universes, each one governed by its own peculiar rules. Now, we're talking of aid. Europe has been, EU in particular, and many countries within the EU, there are 28 of them, have been giving us aid in many instances, especially in devastation caused by extreme weather.
Typhoons. Yeah.
Haiyan, di ba? Everyone poured and gave aid with no string attached. Terrorism. We see Marawi, extreme Islam. The gesture, the offer of aid is without strings attached. And recently, from our visit in Brussels, they even offered to give 70 million euro to help our budget, budget assistance yun eh. Pag kinukulang tayo ng cash, and we're still waiting for the yield of our taxes, then you need a bridging fund.
So, sir, what you're saying really is it's very vital that we continue our aid or grants coming from the EU.
For a developing country like us, it is almost critical that we continue receiving this development assistance, because alone we cannot single-handedly cope with extreme weather, extremism, etc.
But you do also agree with that, what you just said, sir, that it should come with no strings attached.
Yeah, of course. But grants for weather caused by, for catastrophes caused by weather, extreme weather, catastrophe caused by war, like Marawi, terrorism, they all come without string attached.
Okay.
But this is noteworthy, huh? From the beginning, it's the EU who has been helping us push the peace process. Norway, as you know, is a member of the EU, and they've been hosting us all these years. And even now, I think they're still giving us the money to carry on the peace process.
Okay, we'll be taking a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Still to come, what will happen to the country's existing relations with the European Union. We'll get to know more of the reactions from former Senate President Ed Angara after the break. And later, wondering why fast food chicken company KFC only followed 11 Twitter users, and most of them are Spice Girls members. That's for today's In Focus.
Yes,
And
yeah.
ODA.
And trade. Especially
Hiwalay ko muna si trade.
Trade is related to human rights.
Yeah.
To human rights.
Sige. And then let's do trade. Okay.
We have to clarify that because
Got it. Tsaka there was parang...
they tend to lump it together.
And then, Senator, it's also because I think it was Sec Lopez who said that in March, parang we had about $901 million of exports in March, according to the Philippine Statistics
That's trade.
Authority. Yeah, that's trade.
I can discuss that.
Sige, we'll talk about that.
GSP plus.
I just want to understand the difference between what is a grant, what is an aid, and what is an ODA.
Okay.
And do we receive all three from them? Grant, aid, and ODA? Okay. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, Special Envoy to the European Union and former Senate President Ed Angara. Sir, can we do a definition of terms? What do we receive from the European Union? Do we receive aids, grants, and ODAs? And if so, what is the difference of the three?
It's almost the same, aid, grant, and ODA. Except ODA carries a very minimal interest and you have a long time to repay it. So it's practically a giveaway. Grant is giveaway. Walang bayad. Aid, ganun din.
I see.
And what have we been receiving in terms of aid and grant? Well, the support we get for the peace process in Norway. And now, they are also offering to give us an additional 70 million, no strings attached, for budgetary support, so-called, that the flow of funds to our treasury takes time. May gap yan, may time gap, time lapse. So in the meantime, we need to pay salaries, electricity of government.
So that is 70 million.
70 million euros.
Euros. So
quite a bit.
Are we going to accept that or not? Because after what the president said.
Yun na, medyo na question mark nga. But what I'm suggesting is that we should distinguish, as the president wants, between grants, aid, ODA, that have conditionalities or conditions that make us look like mendicants, And fortunately, in the case of grants, etc., from any country, not only the EU, there's no such conditionality. Conditionality usually are imposed kung bailout. Halimbawa, talagang nabangkarote ka. Like when we went bankrupt during martial law and Cory took over a bankrupt government, we need to have massive aid from AID, IMF, World Bank. Yun talaga.
ADB.
Wala pang ADB noon.
Wala pa.
Yun ang talagang very hard conditions.
So the question now is, let's just stick to the grants, aids, and ODAs. What is the official position right now? Is there an aid that's supposed to be coming in that is put on hold? Because the answer to that would be yes, the 70 million euros. Is there anything else, sir?
Yes.
Ano pa?
What is put on hold? Meron pang, I think, yun sa peace process, meron pa. And every year, they propose a development aid to developing countries. Walang issue yan on subservience or mendicancy, because the projects that we submit to them are all vetted or cleared first by NEDA. NEDA is our own agency. And
isn't it true that most of it, the ODA, sir, goes to impoverished areas in Mindanao, conflict areas in Mindanao?
In the case of the EU, and on top of that, the so-called GSP Plus. GSP is Generalized Preference. That's zero tariff. We negotiated that, and the EU gave it to us in 2014. And the full impact of that was only felt 2016.
During the time of President Duterte.
And doon pa lang, nakita natin, the export of the Philippines to Europe has jumped. Skyrocketed, 1.7 billion.
So here's the question, sir. Will the President's statement or his stand not to receive aid, if there are strings attached, will it affect our trade relation with the EU?
I don't think so. But what will affect it deeply and directly is the so-called human rights condition, because in every trade agreement, whether it's with the EU, with USA, with whoever, except maybe China, because they don't even recognize human rights, always has a hindi naman condition parang standards, benchmark on 3 items: environment, workers' rights, and human rights. In the first two, pasado tayo, summa cum laude tayo. Especially sa labor, because as Secretary Lopez said, we even did more than what was required for us. We ended up the endo, di ba? Sa human rights lang ang medyo problematic because it's human rights groups nga, both in the EU as well as outside Australia, USA, keep crying foul because they're extrajudicial.
So how will that affect our trade relations with the EU?
That can cut off. I'm saying possibility, not probability, because it's part of the monitoring, measuring of performance standard. How well do you comply with labor? How well do you comply with protecting the environment? And how well do you respect human dignity? So, ngayon, it's true that there may have been extrajudicial killings in the course of the prosecution of the so-called drug war. But they're not sponsored naman. Hindi man sinabi natin, uy, patayin natin itong mga drug addicts or and I think that change of emphasis is very dramatic now. The President himself pulled out the police and put this small
PIDEA.
But PIDEA, probably more disciplined, more trained.
You think that's the right decision, sir?
I think that's the right decision. But I'll go later to that. And what happened in Caloocan, for instance? The President just pulled out the entire police force. And then he instructed the DOJ to put up an investigating board. I think that's all that the EU naman, or any civilized country wants, that there's action taken against what is perceived or seen to be perceived as unlawful act against person.
So it's as if you're saying, sir, that there have been measures undertaken by the president to help somehow change that possible mindset of violations committed?
I can say, and Secretary Lopez and I keep saying this, when we went to Brussels 2 weeks ago, the reception was different when we narrated to them what happened in Caloocan. And it moved them very, very much when we said that the president even offered for you to set up a human rights monitoring center in the Philippines so that you monitor the human rights monitor.
What did they say to that?
Oh, they're very happy, but it's up to us now. The ball is with us to implement it.
Yeah. And really to accept them.
Huh?
And to really accept them.
The president himself offered to do that. So that shows the sincerity of the leadership, political leadership.
So let me ask you this, sir. If we talk about trade relations from the time you became special envoy, has it increased? Because I remember there was talk coming from the Philippine Statistics Authority that in March, exports to the European Union reached about $900 million, I believe, sir. So increase
yan.
Increase. In spite of the president's tirades, is what I'm saying, against the EU.
No, it was before the tirade.
Yeah, I know, but has it will it? No, but there was in May, sir. The president threatened against cutting aid from the European Union.
That's aid nga. It's not the
yes,
trade.
That's the trade. I know we're trying to. But I because I mean, sir, in general, what is the perception of the European Union to the president, in spite of what he said, whether it talk about grants or trade, sir?
By the time we visited Brussels, which is September 23?
September 25, yeah.
25. We have continuous meeting for 2 days. That perception was slowly vanishing. And then I think we can confirm that at that time we were sitting down, they were so helpful, they were so open, and it's no longer, why are you killing people? It's, how do we help you solve the drug menace? How do we help in coping with the terrorist attack in Marawi? So it's that kind of open, and we were talking to the highest level, the equivalent of the Minister of Trade of the EU. Very, very forceful, very intelligent woman from Sweden. And all the levels of the bureaucracy in the EU. Okay. We're not just talking to individuals.
So that's very positive. That's a very positive development.
That's why Secretary Lopez and I came home happy. Well,
that was
cautiously optimistic.
And then,
and then 2 days after, there's this fake EU delegation.
But sir, when the president said that, we already established there was a miscommunication there. Did you speak to the ambassadors of the European Union here? Yes. What did they say, and how were they taking the president?
Fortuitously, when he made that declaration, that afternoon of the declaration, that evening of the declaration, it was the National Day of Spain.
Okay.
And all the EU ambassadors, almost from all the EU, who have embassies here, were there. But except for Ambassador Jensen, who was on a medical check.
EU ambassador. Okay.
So I talked to as many of them as possible.
And what did you say?
To the Spanish ambassador. Please hold your fire. In effect, wag muna kayong re-respond because I'd like to be able to get in touch with the president.
So wait, sir, pasensya na po. Did you speak to the president?
No, but I spoke to his closest aide, and I gave him the copy of my letter to the Inquirer that they don't speak for the EU. And then, fortunately...
Which the Inquirer published.
Yes. And fortunately, the EU also almost simultaneously issued a disowning letter.
The Progressive Alliance.
So you see, the following day, the president, through Mr. Abela, and he himself said,
Okay. As a last question, sir, kamusta ba yung mga ambassadors after a situation like that? How do they take the president when the president speaks that way?
Those who are here and have been here during the entire term, during the entire time the president was president, more or less understood the manner of speaking and the instantaneous response he has to what he considers an uncritical and disparaging remark. So they understand that, and that's why when I asked them, hold your fire, and they did.
Yeah.
They did, and but as they explained, as one of them explained to me, we here in the Philippines understand that.
Yeah.
But our capitals don't understand that. all they see is the headline of the wire services.
Okay, got it. So at least they're taking, I guess, they're taking it with a grain of salt. Hindi naman sila na insulto, sir, ang tanong ko.
Hindi naman. But yung mga narito who understands the president and has been accustomed to meeting.
All right.
Yeah, well, not accept it, but understand it.
Understand.
But it's their capitals. If it's
got it.
Brussels,
That's why
Paris.
at the beginning of the interview I asked you, mahirap ba maging special envoy to the EU? Former Senate President and special envoy to the EU, Ed Angara. Sir, it's a pleasure to see you again. Stay well and thank you for coming over, sir.
Thank you for having me.
This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Coming up, a netizen decoded the reason why KFC followed only 11 people on Twitter. We'll tell you more on today's In Focus.
No, ang daming layers yan. Ang daming layers.
So, di ba the president, there's a Donald something?
Donald Tusk.
Tusk.
You see?
Yun nga, Donald Tusk.
Tingnan mo, kinumbida niya rito. And they were happy.
Yeah.
Because hindi nakakalimutan nga natin kumbidin sila.
Yeah.
Well, now he's coming.
Is he coming?
Yeah.
The president?
For the November
the ASEAN.
Leader Summit. Yeah.
Okay. Kasi there's also parang a 2-day summit, I think today.
Hindi, mga ministerial lang yan.
Yeah.
Ministerial.
So,
Defense.
What's the... I'm sorry. Time now for today's In Focus here on The Source. A fast food company's Twitter account has as much mystery as its secret recipe, but netizens have just cracked the code on its Twitter account. Twitter user Edge sent out a tweet with a discovery. He says, at KFC only follows 11 people. Wonder why? It turns out Edge says that the 11 people are the 5 Spice Girls and 6 guys named Herb. It didn't take long for the rest of the internet to catch up and give Edge and KFC the recognition for making the connection. Even other restaurants joined the bandwagon. If you still don't get why people are amazed by the discovery, it's because KFC's secret fried chicken recipe consists of 11 herbs and spices, same as the number of accounts that KFC is following on Twitter. How cool can a popular fast foods Twitter get? The answer could be just like that. Thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.
Very short press briefing. We will start with the statement of Assemblyman Zia Adjong, and then I will follow it up with some details about the declaration.
Good afternoon. We are very pleased with the declaration of Secretary Lorenzana that Marawi City is now fully under the government control. As we all know, for the past 154 days, we have suffered so much death from the government side, from our government troops, and as well as civilians lingering in the evacuation centers. This would mean that we can finally put into motion the rehabilitation. As of today, the Task Force Bangon Marawi is conducting subcommittee meetings with regards to the housing, to social services, and to the return of our displaced residents in the controlled area. In the coming days, we would have to formally and officially inform all the stakeholders, including the media, that there were going to be a program by the provincial government in thanking those who have sacrificed so much in the liberation of Marawi City, particularly the Philippine Army and our secretary and our security sector with the PNP and force. So the Governor Soraya Alonto Adyong would have his official statement regarding the declaration any minute now. As to the ongoing MDM operation, the retrieval and rescue operation of the MDM cluster, the Makbara burial site has now turned, a couple of days ago, has now turned into a facility. We have set up the decontamination room yesterday at the site, purposely to make sure that our retrieval team gets sanitized, not only those that remains that were recovered, but as well as those who will be handling the remains recovered from the main battle area. Also, there are 7 K9 units already arrived today. This will be bomb sniffing dogs, K9 units. This will be used by our MDM team, our rescue teams, when they get inside the MDA to proceed with their rescue and retrieval operation. There are also a number of cadavers that were retrieved. We have yet to receive the official number of the remains from the military, as the military and with the SOCO are now handling these cadavers to undergo the examination. Once we have the number of cadavers, we will report that to the media. So today, the SOCO requested us 50 additional body bags, and we anticipate that this number of body bags corresponds to the number of remains that were recovered today. But again, we have yet to receive official data from the SOCO and from the military. So this is the official statement of Governor Soraya Alonto Adyong insofar as the declaration of the complete liberation of Marawi is concerned.
Yes, we can read it.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today marks a huge milestone in the history of Lanao del Sur, this country, our country, and perhaps the whole world. Today, our province can regain the sense of pride that existed before May 23 of this year. Today, we begin to see the light behind the tunnel, and most importantly, today we have achieved a great victory. I must not forget to address this message of gratitude to all our troops who have tirelessly fought in the last few months in our city. Our gratitude to our splendid men goes forth from all our hearts in this city and the entire province. We may allow ourselves a brief period of rejoicing right now, but let us not forget for a moment the toil and efforts that lie ahead. Remember that we will be at our best if we do not let fear paralyze or obsess us. We will be at our best if we instead optimistically and enthusiastically begin the next chapter in our province growth. Achieving this victory does not mean the end of threats. Life is never free of dangers. I wish I could tell you that no Maranao and non-Maranao alike will ever again be killed or wounded by a terrorist, and that no other person on this province will be either. But I cannot say that, and you could not believe me if I did. Life brings risk, especially life in an open society, like the one that people of this land have sacrificed in the history and for centuries to create. We must recognize that the end of this war is not only the first step toward building the peace. We must now see to it that this is a peace that lasts and also a peace that heals, and a peace that not only ends the war in Marawi but contributes to the prospect of peace in the whole country. As I see it, the time has come to look forward to an agenda for the future, to unify, to bind up the nation's wounds, and to restore its health and its optimistic self-confidence. So I ask you to join me in helping to write that agenda. I am as determined as a Maranao can be to seek rediscovery of the belief in ourselves that characterized the most creative periods in the history of our province. The greatest challenge of unity in the so-called Maranao Pride, as I see it, lies ahead. I would like to note that the end of Marawi siege reflects a larger transition. The tide of war is receding, and before we know it, we will rejoice at the homecoming of our beloved citizens who were displaced during the height of this war. In the coming months, years, or decades, let us always be reminded of the greatest lesson of our time: to love, respect, and to unite, inshallah. And finally today, we begin the most resilient and peace-loving province in the central Mindanao, the land of the Sur in Marawi City. We will continue to deal with the struggles of our time, and we are forever indebted with the troops that have sacrificed their lives in freeing the entire Marawi. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Assemblyman Zia, sir. For the side of the military, so today is October 23, day 154 of the Marawi siege. This is exactly 5 months since the start of the siege on May 23, 2017. As of now, the data that we have, following the declaration by the Secretary of National Defense of the termination of combat operations in Marawi City, are the following. For the number of killed Maute ISIS fighters, it's 920. However, right now, our troops are trying to recover the cadavers which were left in the last building that was the stronghold of the Maute ISIS. The estimate is that there are about between 30 to 40 cadavers inside that building. For the number of firearms recovered, it's still at 864. The number of hostages rescued, 1,780. The number of soldiers and policemen killed in action is 165. This includes the 2 bodies that were recovered yesterday. It's very sad to note that the bodies of the soldiers who were that were rescued yesterday were either burned or mangled. Yung isang katawan po ng isang sundalo natin ay nasunog, at yung isang katawan po ng isang sundalo ay pinugutan ng ulo. So one of the bodies was beheaded when we recovered them yesterday. So that is the update so far. We would love to answer questions, but General Pamonag, the commander of Joint Task Force Marawi, is inviting you to go to the main battle area to witness the graduation ceremony of the Special Forces and the Scout Ranger courses. Our guest of honor will be the Commanding General of the Philippine Army, General Rolando Joselito Bautista, who is on his way right now. So we would like to request your indulgence. If from here, if we could proceed to the engineering building of the Capitol, we have 3 vehicles available, 2 KM 450s, these are the smaller trucks, and 1 KM 250, the bigger truck. This is why we are going to limit the number of people coming in. So, kung po pwede po ay isang reporter at isang cameraman lang po, no?
Nakalive daw tayo sa atin ng CNN. You can receive the questions for proceeding to the main lab area.
Pwede ba yung questions muna?
Few lang sa 3 sa mga. 3 first.
Pwede. One cameraman, 2 reporters. Okay. So, we would like to ask for your indulgence. Again, we don't want to repeat what happened last time when we went inside the main battle area during the declaration by the President of the liberation of Marawi City. we will be confined to the JPI building. Doon lang po tayo sa loob. And right after the activity, we would like to request the media to please board the military truck so that we could leave the area right away. No? Wala pong magpapalipad ng drones. Bawal po yung drones. And then again, please observe the limits that was given to us. We want to ask for your cooperation so that the other members of the media who will be covering Marawi in the future will be allowed access into the area. So thank you very much.
Few questions, sir. Very clarification lang, sir, on the termination of combat operations. When we say that, sir, can we at least give us a definition or what exactly will happen from here on?
So when we say termination of combat operations, this means that we are terminating the assault, no, the offensive attack on the positions of the Maute ISIS. It does not prevent our soldiers from defending themselves in case there are strugglers, no? Yung pong mga naiwan, yung mga nagtago sa mga, let's say, mga tunnels. If we find them and they will attack our forces or even the civilians, then we will have to defend ourselves and we will have to neutralize them. No? Yun po ang ibig sabihin ng termination of combat operations. We are still trying to recover the bodies. So hindi po natin alam whether these are male, females. No, but we believe, as we declared yesterday, that everyone left in that building are either fighters or members of the family of the Maute who opted to stay with them, with their husbands, to fight it out until the end. No? Kasi nga po, as per the revelation of the hostages, yung ibang mga asawa ng mga Maute ay nakipaglaban na rin, no? Because they feel desperate already. No? We believe na kasama sila dun sa mga cadavers po na i-recover natin.
Walang nabuhay ni isa, sir?
Sa ngayon, wala na pong nabuhay at nagre-recover na po ng cadavers yung mga sundalo natin.
Have you received, sir, any accounts of how the final assault?
As of now, we have no specifics on the actual assault. Wala rin po tayong specific time. Yes.
So may mga naghahanap pa rin sa drainage at sa mga culverts down din?
So, katulad nga po ng sinabi namin na dati, no, even if we terminate already the combat operations, we will still have to do another clearing operations, mopping up operations. So, ang hanapin po natin are the strugglers, maaaring may mga naiwan na mga fighters, no? Hanapin rin natin po yung mga cadavers. We're going to retrieve them together with the MDM teams. And then we're going to clear the area of improvised explosive devices and unexploded ordnance. Plus, of course, we're going to try to sanitize the area, no? Help in clearing debris from the roads and so on.
Sir, may mga magbabalik, di ba, na 9,000 doon sa 9 barangays. Paano nyo siguraduhin yung kanilang security?
We have already a security plan that we will be implementing for the return of the residents.
What specific, parang anong klase gagawin nyo pa to secure them?
Aside from the checkpoints that we're going to put in place, no, we're going to provide area security. This is in cooperation with the BPATs, the Philippine National Police, the BPATs of the barangays, the Philippine National Police, and the barangay officials.
So will the declaration, sir, have
it's also being handled by the barangay captain. We are trying to empower the barangay captain here, so they will play a very important role. And so far as really certifying that the returnees, the residents, are really bona fide residents of the area. So that's part of the security plan of the local government unit and with the military and the police.
Sir, will the declaration of the Secretary will have an impact on the restrictions being imposed as part of the security measures for Marawi City? In what way, sir? Ano magiging impact na?
Hindi pa po napag-usapan ito, no? But definitely we will slowly allow access in areas that weren't accessible in the past, no? Because of reports that possible reinforcements would come from that area. Malapit na po tayong magbigay ng mga concessions to allow access.
Pero sir, mga batang pass, tatagmilin naman natin or i-record ba?
Pinag-uusapan po ngayon, pinag-uusapan po namin yun.
Pwede ako actually, may I add, no? Actually, yung nasabi na ID system, this is part of, decongesting the area of the engineering. Those people are trying to secure the safe conduct pass. Once you have the screen ka, then once you have the proper identification, I guess it's going to be a process pa ito. Pero that's in response to yung overcrowding, no? At saka yung very slow na pagbibigay ng safe conduct pass. Once the barangay captain would certify you that you are a resident in this area, then I think that's part of no longer requiring them to hold the safe conduct pass because they're already certified to be a bona fide resident para mawala yung very slow and yung decongestion dito sa area natin.
Sir, last on my part ko, ang lang siguro yung guidelines nyo para doon sa mga magbabalik residents doon sa 9 barangays?
I think that would depend on how the barangay captains with the VPAT and the military and the PNP would really secure the area. That's number one. I guess Colonel Browner already informed the media that there's going to be a phases. Phase 1 is the cleanup drive, and then the next phase would be the restoration of governance of facilities. As soon as they are done with that, then automatically magpupunta na po yung mga tao dito. But it's going to be a stronger and mechanism para systematic po yung ating pagbabalik ng ating mga kababayan dito. Colonel, yes.
Okay na?
Yes, okay.
Maraming salamat po. So please again, we want to ask for your cooperation. One reporter, one cameraman.
Per station.
Sige, let's go.
That was Lanao del Sur Crisis Management Committee spokesman Zia Alonto Adyong and Joint Task Force Lanao Deputy Commander Colonel Romeo Bronner giving us an update on the announcement of Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana, and I quote, that we are declaring an end to all military operations in Marawi. Right after Secretary Lorenzana made that announcement in Pampanga, this press conference initiated by both gentlemen, just to give a little bit more update on that decision or that statement made by Secretary Delfin Lorenzana.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm glad to see you here. I'm going to read our statement about the operations in Marawi. After 154 days of the siege of Marawi by the Daesh-inspired multi-ISIS group, or after a week since the Commander-in-Chief declared the liberation of Marawi, we now announce the termination of all combat operations in Marawi. The Philippine Security Forces, meaning the military, the armed forces, and the police, aided by its government and the massive support of the Filipino people, have nipped the budding infrastructure and defeated terrorism in the Philippines. In crushing thus far the most serious attempt to export violent extremism and radicalism in the Philippines and in the region, we have contributed to preventing its spread in Asia and gave our share to maintaining global peace, stability, and security. While we submit that these tactical and strategic gains will not annihilate the ideology completely, we declare that this achievement is clear manifestation of how our regional cooperation can lead to a decisive advance against the proliferation of terrorism in this part of the world. We'd like to thank the nations that helped us, China, United States, Australia, Malaysia, Indonesia, also Brunei also helped, and Singapore. We hope that this operational achievement in Marawi in the Philippines will be the catalyst that shall bring to the fore future cooperations and partnerships, not only against terrorism, but also those that shall defeat other regional and global security threats. End of statement.
That was a statement made by Secretary Delfin Lorenzana just a while back in Pampanga. Again, Delfin, the Secretary rather, saying that this is the end, the termination rather, of all combat operations in Marawi, also thanking countries for helping out the Philippines in ending the problem over there: China, the United States, Australia, Malaysia, Indonesia, Brunei, and Singapore. After that was a press conference by the two gentlemen on more information about this end of combat operations in Marawi. Zia Alonto Adyong, the spokesperson of the Provincial Crisis Management Committee, together with Colonel Romeo Bronner, JTG Ranao Deputy Commander, telling us that after 154 days, that declaration was made by Secretary Delfin Lorenzana, exactly 5 months since the siege in May 23. When the media asked Colonel Bronner what the end of combat operations meant, he said that that is the termination of the assault, the termination of the offensive attack on the Maute ISIS. But he also made it clear, Colonel Bronner made it clear, that number one, clearing operations will continue as stragglers may still be hiding. Also important is the retrieval of the cadavers that will be found while the clearing operations are ongoing, and of course clearing operations of possible explosives that have been planted there by the Maute group. Also, a number of information, at least data coming from Colonel Bronner, saying that in numbers, Maute members, 920 of them have been killed. He also said that there are cadavers left in that last building that the military operated on. This number is about 30 to 40. He said firearms recovered, number amounting to 864, and hostages rescued, that's 1,780. Soldiers and policemen killed in action, 165, including 2 of those recovered yesterday. Unfortunately, according to Colonel Romeo Bronner, 1 was burned and the other was mangled or beheaded. Again, that was the press conference from Colonel Romeo Bronner and Assemblyman Zia Alonto Adyong. Keep it here on CNN Philippines for developments on this story. I'm Pinky Webb. This is breaking news here on CNN Philippines. Guns finally fall silent in Marawi City exactly 5 months after the Maute group attacked the city. Our senior correspondent, David Santos, has been monitoring developments in Marawi City. Let's go to him, David.
Yes, Pinky. As we have been reporting, we are on standby to get official word from the military here in Marawi as to the status of the operation they have been conducting since particularly yesterday, particularly on Sunday. Yesterday, the military announced that they are now concentrating their operations in a building where supposedly the last pocket of Maute fighters are now confined. So far, we are not getting any word yet on how that operation turned out, although we have been receiving information from sources. Of course, these are subject for independent verification, and of course, until we get an official pronouncement from the military. We've been told Colonel Romeo Bronner, the military spokesman here, was supposed to give a briefing just before lunch or around lunchtime today, but that has been placed on hold pending, according to him, waiting of word from higher officials, from senior officials of the armed forces, of the Defense Department. We understand that, according to him, they are awaiting that Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana will make an announcement, a formal announcement that indeed the 5-month battle here in Marawi and today. That's exactly 5 months ago. If you recall, Pinky, May 23, when the fighting broke out here in Marawi, in the city center, and it's October 23 now, so that's exactly 5 months. So far, that's the only information that we're getting. We understand that Secretary Lorenzana, in an ambush interview, did make an announcement.
Yes, David, I'm going to... I will be the one to read that to you because we will get more information from our correspondent over there in Pampanga. The declaration, rather, was made by Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana, and as we speak, an interview is ongoing, so we will try to get him on the line as well. But just to update our viewers as well, Defense Secretary Lorenzana declares the Marawi fighting over, and I quote, "We're declaring an end to all military operations in Marawi. The last group of stragglers were caught in the building, and there were cadavers found in one building." These are just bullet points that I'm getting right now, but at least the quote coming from Secretary Lorenzana is this: "We're declaring an end to all military operations in Marawi." We will try to get more information on that, David, but that is the statement made by the Defense Secretary. In fact, David, you know, just a couple of hours ago, there was already talk, even during Mindanao Hour, that there was going to be an announcement at 12 noon. It came a little, you know, a little past 12 at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. At least that is confirmed coming from the Defense Secretary himself.
Yes, Pinky. In fact, early this morning, we've been trying to make contact with some of our military sources here to check on the situation on the ground. And yes, they did give us that information early on this morning that there's a particular number that they're giving, around 30 to 40 cadavers, or rather remains of suspected Maute fighters have been found in that building. Apparently, some of them are decomposing, but then again, we are still trying to independently verify this information. We are still trying to get an official word from Colonel Browner, but then again, he was saying that we'll have to wait until they get the cue from Secretary Lorenzana, who, as you mentioned, made that announcement this afternoon.
Yes, we're also adding a little bit more information that we're getting. You are right, David. So, a couple of remains or cadavers have been found in one building. That numbers about 42 found apparently in one building, and apparently there's no way of knowing if local or foreigners identified, could be identified with those bodies, because apparently the bodies were beyond recognition. Again, just to give a brief background on this, David, as we were discussing a while ago, it was May 23. Let's take a look back at what happened. David, you've been there, George Cahiles, even Ruth and Rex Remito have been covering this 5-month crisis over there in Marawi City. It started in May 23 when ISIS-inspired men attacked the city of Marawi. And it was very recently, David, that we have been receiving a lot of positive news regarding the operations of not just the military, but of the police. But I want to get back to what the photos were showing on air. This was breaking news of CNN of Philippines. This happened in May 23, and we were getting a lot of photos and messages that there was something happening over there in Marawi. If we look back to that, we could see men in black roaming around the streets, carrying guns, and this brought about that breaking news we started back in May 23. And as I was saying, David, it was just really, a couple of weeks ago or months ago when we heard a lot of positive news regarding the crisis in Marawi. David, maybe we can look back and give our viewers, some more information from that time. This started in May 23.
Yes, Vicky, if you recall, it took several hours before our senior officials or the military and police officials gave us a clearer picture of what really transpired beginning on May 23. The military was saying that they were about to serve a warrant of arrest against a high-value target. He was later identified as ASG leader Isnilon Hapilon. He was cited here in Marawi, and troops from the armed forces were about to serve that search warrant when eventually, simultaneously, apparently, Hapilon, who made an alliance with Maute members. If you recall, these Maute members, Maute fighters, have previously conducted attacks in the adjacent towns of Piagapo as well as Butig. Apparently, when the warrant was about to be served, they also launched simultaneous attacks in different parts of the city. That led on to this 5-month battle with the government, along with its forces, the Army, the Marines, as well as the PNP staff, all coming together to be able to retake the most parts of the city. And now it is down to one building located in the pier area, the port area of Marawi City. So, but then again, looking back, those were really difficult times for Marawi, for Lanao del Sur. 300,000 people displaced. Many of them were forced out of the city and are forced to live in temporary shelters. Others living with their relatives in Iligan City and other parts of Lanao del Sur. Then, of course, there were incidents of people getting wounded due to gunshots. I mean, these are apparently incidents of indiscriminate firing, and a number of people even identified safe zones like the provincial capital where the operation center was established. If you recall, a number of people, including journalists, were wounded due to this indiscriminate firing. So then again, looking back, earlier we were speaking to Mayor Mahul Gandamra, and he was also a bit emotional trying to recall the first few days of the siege, and now he also led the flag raising just before noon today, and for him it was an emotional time to be able to recall all these incidents, leading to what is happening now with the declaration of the end of the conflict.
And 5 months later, an end to the military operations in Marawi as announced by Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana. David Santos, thank you so much for that report. Our correspondent now, Claire Yao, joins us from Pampanga. She was with Secretary Delfin Lorenzana when he announced the end of military operations in Marawi City. Claire, go ahead.
Pinky, after 154 days of fighting, Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana has announced an end to all combat operations in Marawi. It's 5 months to the day since the siege of Marawi back in May 23, when the ISIS-inspired Maute group took over the city. Lorenzana recounted the last push for Marawi, saying they had cornered just 2 buildings left in the city where enemy combatants were hiding. They said they were able to recover about 20 hostages, and they counted about 42 of enemy combatants hiding in the building. They said they gave them one last chance to give up, but they decided to keep on fighting till the very end. And when they finally entered the building just today, they found 42 dead bodies. Of them were 2 wives and about 5 foreign fighters. The numbers, of course, aren't exact yet because they still have to study the bodies. Lorenzana says that some of the bodies were even beyond recognition. So we're not sure yet how they died, why they died, and who are the people inside the building. But he says for sure that all enemy combatants have been killed. He even says that the prospective new leader of the Maute group here in the Philippines, Amin Bako, could also be one of them. Again, not definite, but he says it is very likely he was also part of the group. And he also says that there are no more foreign fighters left in the Philippines. So he says that for now, there will Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana will talk to President Duterte about what to do next, whether it's time to lift martial law in Marawi. But for now, the main announcement, the major announcement after 5 months is that Marawi fighting is now over. Thank you.
Can we get the exact quote, Claire, from Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana? Did he say that we're declaring an end to all military operations in Marawi?
Yes, that is what he said. After 154 days of fighting the Daesh-inspired Maute group in Marawi, we are declaring an end to all military operations in Marawi.
Claire Yao, thanks a lot for that report. Again, breaking news here on CNN Philippines. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana announcing the end to all military operations in Marawi after the last group of stragglers were killed. We will bring you more developments on this as they become available to us. This is breaking news here on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb.